Hi, Bill. How are you?
Hey, very good. How you doing?
Good. Happy holidays.
Same to you. I hope enjoy them with your family.
Thank you.
You had a very successful fundraiser. Congratulations.
Thanks so much. That was unexpected.
Well, you worked for it.
Thank you.
We have the city solicitor with us.
Hi, Christine.
Hi there, good evening.
Happy holidays to you.
Same to you. Same to you.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, how you doing? I'm just joining.
Hey, Christine.
Wonderful.
Christine, I'm gonna, you've got the report for Council Rourke and Council Elliott.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you just to give an overview. Do you know what I'm saying, to begin the meeting?
Sure.
And the thing is, then I'll ask the city solicitor, to talk about the new company that is taken over and, to assure people, what the protocols are,
Sure.
And then any of the subcommittee members or councilors want to ask questions, then we'll invite the audience to ask to participate. And I know, I think I heard Councilor Noon.
You look very handsome, Mr. Mayor. Oh, former mayor.
That's a little bit of a fib, but thank you.
Bill, we're waiting on, Rodney. I hadn't heard from him.
Yeah, he should be there. Well,
Do you want me, do you want me to let, there's one registered speaker, you want me to let her in now, Deb Forgione, to the meeting?
Sure.
Early, okay,
Yeah.
I'll bring her in now. I'll bring her in right after we have the roll call.
okay.
Okay.
Councilor Samaras,
Yes.
I believe the fire chief, it was intended that he would be part of the subcommittee.
Yes.
I don't know if the clerk, I don't know, perhaps he's in a waiting room or, I don't see him here yet. I'm just checking on the list of participants.
When the clerk comes back, I'll
Okay.
ask.
What do you need?
Is the fire chief online?
No.
He should be coming on.
Okay.
The thing is, we'll give a few more minutes to, Councilor Elliott, then we'll begin otherwise.
Okay.
There's Councilor Rourke there, Councilor Noon. Anybody else?
Got Christine Clancy, Council Chow, yeah.
I-
My list says that we're looking for Christopher Hayes, he's not in here yet, and whoever, I think I sent it to the police chief, and someone from the Sun hasn't got on yet, I sent them that as well,
Okay.
just general stuff.
Mike, does the fire chief have the contact info?
Yeah, I sent it out to him, and I sent it to the manager's office as well.
Forwarded to him so it's fresh in his inbox.
Yeah, he's on now.
Oh,
Phil's
okay.
on, the fire chief's on now.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize for my tardiness.
Well, welcome. Fire chief, welcome. Very welcome. You'll get to enjoy these. You'll look forward to it.
Okay.
I hope. We're just waiting for Councilor Elliott, a member of the subcommittee.
Very good.
A couple of minutes. Chief, I want to ask Commissioner Clancy to give an overview, okay? And the city solicitor will pick up on the, the change in companies and what have you. And I'd like to have you just sum up, some of the activities that are taking place, or, where you feel we are and what plans we have. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure you'll be questioned.
Okay.
If there's anything specific. But I think we're well prepared for tonight, so.
Good, all right.
Councilor Elliott's on the way. I'd like to call this meeting to order and have the clerk call the roll.
Chairman Samaras,
Here.
Counselor Elliott, Counselor Noon,
Here.
2 present.
Okay. And I believe we also have Councilor O'Rourke present also.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
All
right.
Mr.
Yes.
Counselor Samaras, I'm going to let 2 registered, one was registered speaker, but there's another one on there that didn't register, but I'll let them both in at this point.
The name,
Deb
please.
Forgione and a John Hamblin. I'll let them in.
Sorry about that. Okay, John, welcome, and I believe Deb's coming on board too also. Deb, welcome to the meeting. We're going to start now, and I've asked Christine Clancy, the commissioner, has a report for Councilor Elliott and Councilor Rourke. She did a good job, and that's going to be presented by the city manager tonight, but I'd like to have Commissioner Clancy give an overview, and then I'm going to ask City Solicitor O'Connor to talk about the new company and the fire chief to pick up some of the pieces of, concerns that were registered by the neighbors, and then we'll go from there, okay? So, Commissioner Clancy?
Thank you. So in this report, I think going back to beginning of December, there were some observations of increased water levels in the Pawtucket area surrounding Clay Pit Brook. And DPW, knowing that this is a flood-prone area, there's other areas in the city too. We do drive-bys to check the water levels. So we noticed at the beginning of December that the water levels were rising a little bit, and that's instantly for DPW. We look to see where, there is the Bladder Dam, but really we look to see if there's beaver activity along Clay Pit Brook. And in this case, we did find beaver activity. First, it was actually, we found it in a culvert on Malden Avenue. And in order for DPW to, before entering into the brook to do any breaching of dams, we have to, by Mass General Law, we have to follow certain protocols with DEP. So we had to file a emergency notification permit with the Conservation Commission, which we immediately did, and then we coordinate with a consultant that someone specialized in beavers and that can trap them. So it's Wachusett Wildlife. We received the permit December 3rd. After that, the beaver consultant went in the day after and began trapping. He was able to remove 2 beavers from the Clay Pit Brook area. And then the following week, we went in and we were able to start, seeing how we could breach the dams, because that would then allow the water to flow and hopefully relieve some of the flooding in the Clay Pit Brook area. It became a little more complicated because where we thought we had one dam, we actually had a few dams, and you have to really work. You have to work your way from downstream upstream. And so we first, it was I think over by Camelot Court. We found another dam. This was all under that emergency notification permit, but it was over really, I guess, a week and a half, 2-week period of time where we'd breach a dam, let the water levels recede, and then finally the last effort was that 60-inch culvert on Malden Ave, where we actually had to go into the pipe and remove a blockage that was created from beaver activity, and that was all completed. And this is noted in the report. I would say it was over like a 2-week period. And as we made those improvements, or as we breached the dams, we noticed that the water levels had receded, and they continue. I guess so. DPW continues to observe this area, and if we see activity in terms of rising water levels or beaver activity, that's our process. As we coordinate with Conservation Commission, if it has to be more in an emergency, then we do so in an emergency, in calling out our beaver consultant immediately. Also, though, I think in this report, I think the initial concerns were that I think people were maybe not aware that it was associated with beaver activity. So also there is the Bladder system of the Pawtucket Dam, and that there's a little summary in this memo that I provided. And so really in terms of where the Bladder dams, once the Merrimack River reaches an action stage above 50, that's where then you would have a Bladder system lower their gates. And this is all off of the USGS gauge system. This is measured, and there's also the NOAA flood stage prediction. And this was all detailed. Christine O'Connor, our city solicitor, can provide some more information on this. But this was all outlined in a previous settlement agreement in the owners of the canal Central River Powers. I guess also just in terms of whenever we have rain events or any even melting of snow, it's something that DPW coordinates with emergency management, with the fire chief, just understanding, the elevations of the river, but also if it's not elevations of the river, is there beaver activity? So it's just something that DPW frequently, and Clay Pit Brook frequently observes and monitors this location.
Thank you very much. City Solicitor O'Connor.
So the only thing that I would add to what has already been said is the reference to the settlement agreement between the city and previously Enel, and now their successor in interest. It continues to apply to Central Rivers Power, and as the DPW commissioner noted, when we entered into this new agreement, it is now a condition-based, weather-based agreement, and which provides far greater opportunity for the previous flashboard that the previous flashboards had provided, and it's also based on predicted weather. So we no longer have to wait for actual weather conditions to occur in order to take action.
Thank you. That's very good. Thank you. Commissioner, Fire Chief.
Yes, thank you, Councilor. So overall, in the sphere of emergency management, we're looking at the entire project, essentially what we would consider the Lowell hydroelectric power project, of which the Crest Gate itself, that Bladder Dam that you speak of, that's actually on the dam itself, is only one section. As you know, this also includes all of the Lowell Canal system and the Great Guard Lock, what they call the Great Guard Locks, which is basically the system that they have set up to protect the city at the general location of the old Francis Gatehouse. In relation to the dam, as the city solicitor had indicated, once our downstream gauges begin to indicate somewhere in the vicinity of 35 to 37,000 cubic feet per second coming across the gauge. That's when we begin, and Central Rivers Power also will begin to look at the dam and its location, and that's when we start to do a lowering based on our river levels on the Noaa weather gauges, which we're looking at an action stage of 50 feet. That is established through the USGS and Noaa, and essentially that is the point at which they consider the Merrimack at its action stage, and then we begin a communication between Central Rivers Power, myself, and the Office of Emergency Management. What is their status? Are they lowering? They're required by the agreement to actually give us a notification that they are lowering due to an excessive amount of water over the falls at that particular point, depending on the conditions. And of course, they should be bringing it down to its lowest possible stage at that point. At that point, we're looking at the USGS hydrological website. We're checking our readings above and below the dam, and we are conversing with Central Rivers Power on the actions they're going to take regarding the bladder, and also referring to our gauges as far as the cubic feet per second, the volume of water that is passing over the dam itself.
Thank you, Chief. I'll ask members of the subcommittee if they have any questions. Councilor Noon? Councilor Noon, do you have any questions?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Is Councilor Elliott present?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for, I'm sorry I was a little bit late. I got locked out of City Hall, so I did just want to follow up with one question.
You know we're secure.
It is secure. This is true. But I think it's important to have this meeting. I appreciate Commissioner Clancy and the chief, fire chief, for giving that update, particularly when as it relates to the water levels at the dam, but also more importantly, the protocol moving forward with the beavers. Perhaps this summer was uncharacteristic of precipitation that we would normally get, and perhaps we would have had somewhat of an indication if there were, the beavers were building their dams, but I appreciate the effort and moving forward, the monitoring to keep an eye on this, because it does happen more frequent than we would like. I did go down to that 60-inch culvert on Malden Ave. That was, I could see that you used a pretty good-sized piece of equipment to take that dam apart, as well as downstream. So it's good news for the neighborhood. I guess we'll all have to be vigilant to some degree, because there was a lot of water, and that was a week and a half later. I could see it. I could see it emptying the sort of the higher levels in that brook. But I think it's good news all the way around. Just to the fire chief, this new company, we've been working with them in my other job at DCR, and they seem cooperative. They seem eager to be more of a good corporate partner. Is that the perception that you have, Chief, that if there is an issue, I know a lot of this is part of the agreement, and once these levels are reached according to the gauges on the river, they should do something, but that was not always the case with Bootenau.
Yes, thank you, Councilor. So Chief Winwood had an excellent handle on this when it was Boot Hydro. He had several connections that he could phone immediately to find out the status and to get the latest gauge estimates. I'm still working on establishing that rapport. We do have a emergency action plan here that was just given to us as of the 27th, which I've reviewed, the 27th of April of this year. And I'm looking to make contact with the emergency action manager, and I'm hoping to get for myself and also for Commissioner Clancy a walkthrough of the actual hydrological facilities located in the area, so I can get a better understanding of what actions they are physically taking in the event of excessive water flow.
Okay, that's good. Knowing Thursday and Friday, we're looking at pretty high, could be pretty high levels, or lots of precipitation coming Thursday and Friday. So what will be the process that, particularly on Friday and then into Saturday? I can just envision, that basin filling up, and that
We'll
dam-
definitely looking those levels over and taking action accordingly. If we do see the kind of water flow that indicates that the Bladder Dam should be lowered, we will be reaching out to Central Rivers Power. I have a series of phone numbers and a protocol that I follow as far as making the notifications and asking them what procedures they're taking and for notification to us on what they're doing, because they are supposed to, required by the agreement, to make a notification that they're lowering for excessive water. So we'll be looking on the USGS site over the weekend, watching it on a daily level, and touching base with them if we have concerns.
That's good news. I appreciate the update. Thank you, Commissioner and Fire Chief. I think this is welcome news to the neighborhood. Sometimes we can't always control Mother Nature when it comes to the beaver dams, but moving forward, I think we have a good handle on managing that elevation so it doesn't affect the basements and the neighborhoods from potential flooding. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott. Councilor Rourke, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would just echo Councilor Elliott's remarks that I think that the response by the city manager, the DPW Commissioner Clancy, and the fire chief was good in this instance. I think that the report we had at the beginning of the meeting was as detailed and as extensive as my time that I've been on the council. I believe, through Councilor Elliott and I, either one of us has either been the chair or on the flood subcommittee, probably for the better part of the last 2 decades. So I think that going forward, there's optimism. I know a lot of the problems caused in the past was because of Enel and their lack of cooperation with the city. So it's good to hear that the new company has been more forthcoming and cooperative. So obviously looking forward to seeing what precautions are in place going forward to make sure that there are no heavy flood areas in the city going forward. So with that, I'll send it back to you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rourke. Councilor Rourke and Councilor Elliott did bring up some really good points about, these are good reports that Commissioner Clancy and Fire Chief and City Solicitor that you've given us. But we know in the past that we have not always had the cooperation, and this is important to the people in Pawtucketville, and the issue of cooperation, working together, does, in a sense, can solve a lot of problems. Councilor Sakawi Chow, do you have any questions? Not with us. Are there any other councilors? Mr. Clerk, is there any other councilors?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have members from the Pawtucketville community. Mr. Forgione, do you have any questions?
Deb, do you want to go first, or do you want
John,
Hear me now?
yes.
Yeah.
I had a question. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the updates. Pleasure to meet you, Chief Sharon. I don't think we've ever met before, but pleased to meet you. I can see that, and Christine, welcome to Pawtucketville. You're educated now in the Beaver tribe, so I appreciate the help there. I had a question about where we are with the relicensing. I know we had a couple of meetings that, because we have a place at the table, there's going to be a relicensing to operation of the dam. And I thought we all wanted to be able to revisit the 50-foot level, the 50-foot level, which was a champion of Councilor Elliott. If it wasn't for him, we would have never got the 50-foot agreement. But the 50-foot agreement was with the foot on our neck. We had no choice to do anything lower than that. And we always did talk about revisiting, and when we had a seat at the table for the relicensing. And I didn't know, where are we with that? I just don't want to lose a place at the table. No.
Madam Solicitor, did you address that?
Sure. So as far as the protocol that the city entered into with Enel, it was part of the legal settlement, it was a settlement, frankly, that even if we had prevailed in our position, this was essentially what we were looking for. So we were pleased with what we had. By the same token, because these were again significant changes from where we started, and with this Crestgate system, and the Crestgate system was able to do things that the flashboard system just wasn't capable of doing. This could be now lowered. And again, in addition to checking the gauges as the fire chief spoke to, under our protocol that we had negotiated, the requirement isn't just limited to the water levels at the particular gauge. So when there is the prediction of a large event that's going to impact the water levels, this protocol does not require that the parties wait until a gauge hits a certain point. As long as there is the prediction that they're going to hit a certain point, immediate action can be taken, which again is a huge improvement over what we had once had to deal with an L. So as far as the agreement itself, the agreement is part of a closed case. It was settled. I know that Enel didn't have any, hadn't indicated that they were going to be revisiting it, and because it's part of a settlement, the settlement itself even speaks to the fact that this is a resolved issue.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fortune, did that answer your question? Councilor Elliott, I'm sorry, Ms. Fortune.
I'm going to refer to Councilor Elliott because as much as, I respect Attorney O'Connor, I didn't quite remember it being that way as finite. I believed at the meetings that we had and even conversations with Manager Donahue, we do have a chance at the relicensing to revisit that 50-foot, because the 50-foot worked upstream. It didn't work for Pawtucketville. We were looking for less.
As of tonight, we're at 43 feet, and we are underwater in Pawtucketville. I checked the culverts tonight, 75% still full. The Bladder dams for the last 10 days have been all up. When Untitled was running those dams, they kept one corner always down. I monitor the new dam on a daily basis. If I live close enough and I can go over and see it, and I get pictures, they have not lowered any sections of that Bladder dam for the last 10 days. And we have the perfect storm. We got Mother Nature, dam owners, and we got beavers. So as we sit here tonight at home, we are all underwater. And it's not even January yet. Neighbors have already replaced water heaters.
Across the street.
Across the street already.
Over the last 2 weeks, she had to replace
We have not seen this much water on Townsend Ave in the last 15 years.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott? Councilor Elliott?
Well, I was just going to chime in a little bit. They are in the relicensing process, and it's an extensive process. What I do know is that the company just filed an amendment for substantial changes. Those substantial changes are for the 4 powerhouses that are operated on the Pawtucket Canal. They're no longer going to be operating them for hydroelectrical purposes. So I did have a conversation, I forget the gentleman's name, but the city does have a seat at the table, as does the state and any other party that's involved. So I know that the application process has begun for relicensing. So I do feel that we have an opportunity to continue to weigh in. I know the solicitor, I'm sure the solicitor has received those communications about the process and the changes.
I'd like to speak to that because...
Just a moment. Madam Solicitor, do you have any response to that?
No, so again, we can certainly continue to have these conversations. However, again, FERC was part of this settlement agreement, and it was intended to be just that. To the extent, however, that there continue to be issues, then those discussions can continue to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fortune?
But I wanted to speak to that because when we had the meetings about the fact that they have to go back and relicensing, we all had the discussion that that would be a perfect moment to be able to sit at the table and make our concerns known. And the height of the boards, or the Bladder Dam now, that 50 feet was terrific for upstream, but not for the Clay Brook neighborhood. And I know Councilor Elliott did yeoman's work on this, and he's going to agree with me that we had talked many times after that, even at a meeting about the relicensing, that having a seat at the table to be able to voice our concerns. That lawsuit doesn't dictate infinity for Lowell. That was a lawsuit, but sitting down on relicensing, you have a voice. You have a voice about what really matters to the neighborhood, because it's going to last 20 years. That license that we lived under for 20 years, we had to follow it. But now we have this opportunity for the relicensing. Now that we have a large voice, we didn't have a large collective voice like we do now, 20 years later, to talk about real experiences and why we want to sit at that table. And we were told, it was at the Inner Conference Center, and it was a large crowd, and we were told, and city manager was there, Eileen Donahue, who spoke eloquently all about knowing the process and knowing that we did have a seat at the table. So to hear that we're looking at it like it's just a lawsuit decision that we all have to live by, I believe that the licensing allows the city of Lowell, one of the largest stakeholders, to be able to have a larger voice and revisit the height of the river and when it should be lowered. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I wanted to address an anomaly of the gauge that we use to make decisions by. We all know that gauge is actually downstream of the Falls River Bridge, and it's very accurate in measuring volume, but it is not accurate at measuring depth behind the dam. And Superintendent Clancy and new Chief Sharon, who I haven't met yet, I'm John Hamblett, and I'm Vice Chair of Pawtucket Full Citizens Council. And we did some testing a couple years ago, and one of the interesting things we found is when the dam bladders are up, the flow is decreased. So you're looking at the flow on the genealogical site, and the number is low. And meanwhile, water is backing up behind the dam. Then they put the dam down, and a gush of water comes down, and all of a sudden it looks like Pawtucketville is being flooded because there's a high volume of water going past the gauge. And in fact, our water levels were at that point in time dropping. One of the things that our former chief did well was visual inspection. And so I would encourage DPW and emergency services to make frequent visual inspection of the neighborhood, because the gauges during times of fluctuation do not measure what you'd like them to measure. Now, I don't know if I did a good job of explaining that. Christine Clancy, I think you've been in this conversation before, but you understand what I'm saying, that when the numbers are high, the water is low. When the numbers are low, the water is high. So it could be 43 right now, and we could be flooded. So,
Exactly, John. we're at 43 and we're flooded. That's a good example.
Right.
We are flooded, the bladders are always up for the last 10 days. Enel always kept one section down, 24/7, no matter what the conditions were. Then when the conditions got bad, they laid them all down. But right now, these new people who are running the show are keeping them all up 24/7, and we got the beavers and Mother Nature, so we got the perfect storm.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, John, thank you. Commissioner Clinton, Councilor Elliott? Question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know you can't see it, but the city manager's joined us here in the chamber, and I just wanted to see if you could recognize her.
Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I was in the other room listening to the subcommittee, but I did want to just join briefly. I know some of the comments here regarding where we are on relicensing. I think the solicitor's advice is correct as it stands today. We are governed by that agreement on that lawsuit. The relicensing, I think it is important to note, as Councilor Elliott mentioned, we were just recently notified of some pretty significant changes that were submitted by Central Rivers Power, unbeknownst to me, and I know we're taking a very serious look at some of the changes they're seeking before FERC. This is a few years off, but we are obviously looking at that. So I think the relicensing that they're seeking is going to be even more pervasive than what had been previously. So stay tuned, but we will be examining every aspect, whether it has to do with the dam or has to do with some of the other property owned by and operated by them and some of their proposals. It could have serious impact on the entire city. So it's under review right now by our departments, and we will come forward. But the time for weighing in and giving testimony and written, that's all part of the process, and we expect that to be going on for the next couple of years. But we will keep you apprised of those developments. But again, as I said, just recently they submitted a very, very different plan and substantial changes from what had initially been FERC's, or what was Enel application to FERC. So just stay tuned. I just wanted to weigh in on that.
Thank you, Madam Manager. That's important information. Christine, Jean brought up the idea, that you talked about doing tours of what's going on. In other words, keeping an eye on the area. I mean, can you respond to that a little more?
Yes, so our street department does frequent visual observations, I would say, of the Clay Pittsburgh area. And I think what John is referring to is I know the chief would also go down to and observe actually the dam itself, Pawtucket Dam. I think that's something that some of our staff do. I mean, myself, I could probably make it more frequently. We could definitely do that. But I mean, we do rely on the gauge data, but we also, I guess, so we do have a frequent observation of the area, I would say. As far as observations of the Bladder Dam system itself, we could definitely have DPW look at that a little more, but I guess we're relying on the gauge for the Bladder Dam system because it is triggered at that 50-foot elevation.
Thank you. Councilor Noon, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question, since the managers, and I heard the city solicitor mentioned this too about the plans, some proposed change that the Central River Power is going to propose. So the anticipation of that, some of those changes, how much impact would that going to be on what already exists now? If you can tell us about that.
Thank you, Councilor. The changes that I saw, we are going to be having an in-depth meeting on it. The impact wouldn't be as much on Pawtucketville as it is the whole downtown area. It is a very, very significant proposal. And so I'm going to refrain from commenting on it because I don't have the firsthand knowledge of the details, just that it's quite significant, and it raises a number of issues as to what's going to happen to the property in and around the downtown, who's going to maintain it, just a multitude of questions. So my point is, in addition to the dam, there's also now a vast addition of changes that are being proposed by the new owner.
So if you can, at this point, update us, the council, as soon as you can update us, it'll be really helpful. And since now it's not only impact Pawtucket, but also the downtown, maybe also at the same time, residents should also be, informed as to what's the proposed change in terms of the agreement between us and the Central River Powers, so that they really get some input into what will impact them and what step we as a city will take to protect not just Pawtucket, but also in this change will impact on the downtown as well. So
absolutely,
thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Noon. Councilor Elliott, do you have a question?
I just want to get back to the beavers, if I could for a moment, to the commissioner. We have these consultants on contract, which I think is very important. How often they're trapped, the beavers are trapped and they're relocated somewhere else? And I'm not so worried about that. I'm worried about, other beavers coming in or other beavers that have not been trapped. Typically or normally, they will, it's just Mother Nature that they're going to rebuild a dam because their habitat is within a water, and that's how they build their huts. So what's the frequency of them coming back?
Well, I guess just to clarify, they are removed from this site, and it's against Mass General Law to relocate beavers, because you can't really relocate them to another area. So unfortunately, they are removed from the site and euthanized. And so they can't come, those particular beavers can't come back to the site. So every time we consult, it really depends, I guess, on so this summer we had, we didn't have many rain events, and so we didn't have if we see beaver activity, we call the consultant in to trap. Especially if there seems to be water building up. If it's a completely dry, we have to see some evidence of not saying not flooding, but just of low flow in the brook. But our consultant is on call essentially and very responsive. And so when in this particular case, when we needed him, we called him we got the permit, we called him on Thursday, and he was trapping on Friday. So he's very responsive, and I guess as far as the frequency, it really depends on the needs, and that's where, in terms of our street department, even sometimes our engineering department, if they notice anything, myself, then we're out there weekly, and especially during any rain event. So I know, with the upcoming rain, we have a watchman. So even though it's Christmas, we have a watchman here, so we'll make sure that we're out looking at this area even on Christmas and Christmas Eve.
Okay, good. That answers my question. Just to Ms. Forgione, have you seen, because I haven't been out there since the snowstorm, but have the water levels dropped in the area?
Not significantly. It has somewhat, but it's not significantly. Usually a lot of times after they've breached the dams and taken the beavers out, it goes down significantly. And that's why my husband was talking about, the height of the river, not letting the boards. If we're flooded over here, it would be a courtesy to just drop at least a section of the dam to get some relief. That would help us. And I think that's where Chief Woodward, you had that kind of rapport. I think you could call up and ask to do that. But you can't have protocol based on just a personal relationship. It really has to have like A, B, and C. This is what happens. So here we are over in Clay Pit Brook. We've had a beaver problem. The river's high, and the last time we had this problem with the beavers, they actually captured 14 beavers. So when I heard 2 beavers, I'm like, oh, man.
Can I ask what,
2 beavers.
when was that?
Actually.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, the city went in and trapped 14 beavers.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And it was
I
significant.
didn't know that. I didn't know that. Okay. So,
And the boards were down a quarter of the way all the time. Now they're always up, always up. Go take a look tonight. I'll guarantee you right now they're all up.
I go by every day. I hear you.
Me too.
Chief, is that something you think that you can reach out to the new owners and say, look, they're still pretty high elevated levels in the neighborhood. Lots of rain has lots of snow, lots of melting today, more melting tomorrow, lots of rain coming Thursday, Friday. Rather than wait for that gauge to hit, hundreds of cubic feet per, is it something that they can preempt and drop it, knowing that neighborhood's probably going to flood even more?
I can reach out. I don't have the same type of contacts that Chief Winwood had with the original organization. That that connectivity I don't have.
Okay. You know what, Chief? I do have a contact that I will send to you. I think he's a new individual. Those contacts that the former chief had probably have changed anyway. But I'm happy to send at least the individual that I spoke to you.
Absolutely, I'll take anything I can get. I've used several numbers to get contact with CRP both last week and this week, just in the interest of getting a general understanding of the whole hydrological project within Lowell and the Crest Dam's use. I'm not getting a lot of feedback from the numbers I've used, so if you do have a contact, Council, that would be greatly appreciated.
Will do. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Elliott. I think we had a, yes, John? Go ahead.
So, if I do my math correctly, this coming year will be the 15th anniversary of the Mother's Day flood of 2006. So I know of several people who have been working on this for the last 15 years. And the one thing that has slipped through our fingers, recognizing that the gauge down the river does not measure depth, that it only measures volume, and that those two don't correlate. You'd think if there's more volume, then the water is higher. That's not true because there's a dam. We have talked on a number of occasions about getting a gauge on this side of the dam, on the Pawtucketville side of the dam, something that would actually measure the depth. And we're in this for the long haul. If there's any way we can start that up again, I would love to see a formal USGS or an informal gauge that would measure the depth. Right now, our measure is one of our members goes over behind the gatehouse and looks at how deep it is against the steps. And we probably could use something a little more formal than that. I know we're limited on time tonight, but if someone could take the mantle and champion that project, we'd certainly be happy to support that in any way possible.
Thank you, John. Okay, I think this was a good meeting and actually a timely meeting. And I would suggest that perhaps, as was stated, we're headed for some bad weather. In the month of January, it will be a telling month. And I think shortly after January, we should have another meeting of the subcommittee to review what has happened since this particular time. We have people who are new at this, but we also have people who really have a good understanding of what needs to be done. And some questions were raised tonight. The city managers also talked about the licensing procedure. City solicitors talked about the procedure, but we do have rights. We know we have issues. We've always had issues in this area, but more can be done. So I want to commend everybody for tonight's meeting, for the information provided, and I would suggest that we will call a meeting during the month of February to review what has happened since then. I think having a really clear understanding as to what's going on visually and to be able to talk about it would be important to this process. So I'd seek a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Merry holiday, everybody.